to Horror Hour.
We all go a little mad sometimes. We get you. Here's Johnny.
How's it going, Steven?
Very good, very good. Thank you. How's it going with you?
Not too bad. It's a nice rainy day out. That's my vibe.
Where are you?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I finished watching the film and it actually confirmed that I can tell my twin she is officially evil. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So first off, with this film, I'm kind of curious. I've been enjoying, well, I shouldn't say I've been enjoying because it creeped me out, but I enjoy the films that definitely deal with grief and loss. And I'm curious, with this film, did you take anything away from it yourself, just personally?
Yeah, hugely. It's when we filmed it, we filmed it in March, beginning of March, and so for 2 months from March until the beginning of May 2021. So we were still in lockdown. It was lockdown in the UK. Estonia had actually just gone into lockdown for the. I was going over to. I had read that things were still open, and I thought, oh great. But as I got to Estonia, COVID really kicked off there for the first time in a year, and they went into full lockdown as well. And so I have a 4-year-old daughter. And at the time, she was 3 years old. And so when I took the job, I knew that I wouldn't be able to get home for 2 months at all. And due to my wife works in the UK, and so they weren't going to be able to come out and visit me. So it was a really, really big decision to take that, because I try and never be away longer than a week. But it felt worth it, and it felt like a really good opportunity. And as you see in the film, it's about a lot of things, but part of it, at its crux, is a couple dealing with grief and the loss of one of their twins, and the grief that I felt saying goodbye to my daughter that day, like, fucking destroyed me. I was on the way to the airport, just like, I cannot believe. My wife as well, but it's a little bit different with an adult relationship. But knowing that I wasn't, and obviously because I was thinking about the mindset of Anthony, and you're like, right, I know that I'm going to see my daughter again, but saying goodbye to your child and knowing that you're never going to see them again it's the sort of thing as a parent you never want to imagine. But out there as an actor, you have to try and put yourself in that mindset. And I mean, it's maybe it sounds a bit cliched or kind of obvious in a way, but I got to the end of that, and I loved making the film. I loved the filmmakers. I loved everyone involved in it. It was such a tough but great experience. But family is everything, and at the end of the day, that's what and as I get older as well, and not even just my immediate family, my family in Scotland, I think being away from everyone for 2 months, and I was so isolated there, and it was a very isolating period in human history. I felt the loneliness more than I've ever felt, I think, before. And it's just kind of appreciate every day you've got with your family, I think.
I mean, I believe it. I think a lot of us are feeling that way, just kind of, with what we've all went through, some are still going through. And I think having to do a film like that and then pull from those emotions, that, it certainly showed. And I completely could understand some of that, and just the grief that you both were experiencing through the film. And then on top of that, you have the elements there was that good creep factor as well. And that house creeped me out. I mean, how was it filming in that house?
When we showed up to that house on the first day, and we had the old station wagon that we drove up in as well. And obviously, you know, we're playing Americans in the movie as well. I've always been a huge horror fan. I love horror. I love getting scared. I love psychological horror. I love them all. Actually, not so much. I don't love the gory horror quite as much, actually. But when we rocked up and I saw that house to the station wagon, I was like, wow. I feel like I'm in one of those horror movies that I've seen and loved, like The Conjuring or something. And now I don't know, for some people, they might see that sort of, I can imagine that's the sort of thing where some horror fans might see it and think, oh, it's another scary house. But for me, I think that's kind of part of the identity. You know, I want that.
I mean, I don't know. If I showed up and that was my house, I'd be like, fuck this, I'm out. Bye. Sorry.
Oh, listen, by the way, absolutely. If I showed up and I was living there, not a fucking chance. Not a chance. It had the beautiful lake out the back where obviously 15 people have drowned in at some point, you know, surrounded by forests. There was nothing else about. And it was really stark and beautiful. But even you went in the house as well, and the house was creepy. Like, I mean, it genuinely was. It was such a great location.
I mean, yeah, I bet filming there I'm curious because I kind of somewhat believe in that. Any paranormal things happen while you were there? I'm just, you know, maybe like you get that chill as you guys were filming there.
I didn't necessarily notice anything, but I have to say the night shoots when we were there at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and it was so cold. It was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Like there were days where it was minus 25 Celsius. And so there was kind of those kind of creepy, scary moments in the house and outside as well. It was no acting required almost. And the great thing as well about a setting like that is I always feel it's like an extra character in the movie as well. So yeah, kudos to the location team that found that.
Yeah, no, it definitely yeah, no, I would not sign on the dotted line for that, but I did love the setting and I think it really added to it. I also enjoyed just the lore just within, you know, we see so many in terms without giving things away, but I really enjoyed where they were delving into, because I like seeing I think this played actually at night visions in Finland, and but I'm curious, just with the lore and everything that surrounded it, did you find yourself enjoying just kind of to carve out your own piece in this type of tale, or in this type of, you know, genre?
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely. As I say, there was one side of the experience for me where there was an intense loneliness and an intense missing of my family. But the actual filming process of it and playing Anthony and working with Teresa and I love Tannerly and Alexei so much, the team behind that, just such good guys. And getting to be part of this world and showing up to these incredible locations, although I know it's set in Finland, but, you know, Estonia was doubling for Finland, all these incredible places they'd found, and getting to be part of this, you know, weird and trippy, and, you know, like to me, I don't know if actually, I have to say, I don't know whether it was deliberate on Tannerly's part or not, and Alexei's, I think it was, but you know, I felt like there was a lot of you know, paying homage to some tropes or lore that I've loved over the years. So yeah, it's kind of like that sort of stuff for somebody, you know, growing up in Scotland and seeing certain horror, you know, because it's set in the early 80s as well, and it feels to me, it feels like a horror movie of that period. Yeah, it's like I'm very very proud of what everyone achieved, and really you know, grateful to be a part of it.
I mean, it was very gripping for me, because I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, because also I was too nervous I was going to miss something, but I also the performances, you all really gave it 100%. And that's why when you're saying some of that was acting, but some of that was just, you were experiencing that, it really just came across really great. And it was very interesting that you've all have a good portion of you have worked together before with Discovery of Witches, which just, ended after, a great, 3-season run.
Yeah. I mean, that was I got on board with the movie because of Teresa, so there was no coincidence there. That was entirely and utterly, Teresa recommended me for the part, and the producer and the director, went with that. Fortunately for me, but Barbara Martins, who plays Helen, and who played, she's fucking brilliant. Sorry for swearing, but
no, you're fine.
She's so good. She's so good in Discovery of Witches, and her and Teresa just do a fantastic job in the twin. And probably people might be even more amazed, to know that Teresa was a few months pregnant when we were doing this movie as well. Which when you see the performance that she gives and what she's doing in it, I take all my hats off to her. With that, I mean, that's tough. Shudder, as you see, Shudder, a demanding part, and so I didn't know Barbara, but Teresa and Barbara had obviously worked together before. But oddly, actually, for us, even though for Teresa and I, it meant that we had an immediate chemistry, and it meant that we had an immediate sort of, we knew how to speak to each other and stuff. It was also odd in a sense as well, because our characters in Discovery of Witches are totally different, a completely different dynamic, and, different accents, and just, it was a very different set of circumstances. And actually, in a way, at first, I certainly found it was almost quite discombobulating trying to, because we'd only finished the Discovery of Witches a month before. So then suddenly, it was actually, it was good, but it was almost like slightly jarring at first, trying to find this new, this sort of, these new characters, and seeing each other in a different way, probably.
Well, I guess, before kind of to couple of questions that I have just to really finish up, then, as a horror fan myself, and as a horror fan of, what was the last great horror film that you saw recently you just really enjoyed?
Oh my God. Host, is it the one that they did in lockdown on the laptops? Just what went behind that too, that was impressive. They all committed. Like, I tip my hat to all those actresses. That was brilliant as well. So impressed. Somebody told me to watch it last year, on my laptop, in my bedroom, with my AirPods in, with all the lights off.
Oh yeah, you got the full experience.
I promise you, and I'm not exaggerating, halfway into the film, I actually thought, I'm going to have to turn this off. I am so fucking scared right now, because that's the sort of horror, I just love that. And it was tapping into all the stuff. When I was a kid, me and my friends used to do the Ouija board, and we were trying to call in evil spirits all the time. So it tapped into all that, all that stuff from when I was a kid. And God, it was so well done. And similar to you, I thought the actors were absolutely fantastic. I looked them all up afterwards, and I was like, I hope that does something for everyone involved, because it was such a great piece of, filmmaking.
I think they, for a while, for the longest time, it was Sinister, but now Host is officially the actual scariest film, in terms of, like, they did a scientific study and just measured your, like, heart rate and everything. And it's true. Blood pressure went through the roof on that one. And then just last, what do you want people to take away from this film?
Well, you said at the start you enjoyed it, and you're like, that's maybe not quite the right word. So I guess it's like,
yes,
you do want to, I guess when you go and see a horror, when I go and see a horror, I want to be, I definitely want to be scared or creeped out on some level. I don't need to be terrified, but Ultimately, I do hope, that people, I hope that people enjoy the movie. I hope they have a good experience watching it. It's so utterly out of my control and anyone else's control now. And also in a way, you don't want to be, I was saying, you don't want to, as an actor or anything, you want to just get to the end of the job and be like, right, I loved making that and I'm proud of that. And whatever happens now is whatever happens. And you don't want to be you don't want to be like desperate for everyone's validation. But also, it's far nicer and far better if people appreciate and enjoy the work than hate it. I think it would be interesting to me if people want to watch it a second time, from a personal point of view.
It may take me a moment because it's an emotional journey and it's well worth it, but I may need like I don't know, a Xanax or something. Like it just takes you on it's a crazy ride. You guys it was phenomenal. I think the director, writing, I enjoyed it, but yeah, it would be hard just because those emotions, by the end of the film, I'm like, you guys put me through it. So
yeah, well, it's obviously it's ostensibly a horror film, but actually it's also, I really think it's a drama about the examination of parents' grief, and as you say, Teresa in particular absolutely goes through the ringer in this film. So
yeah. So kudos, and I also just again thank you for taking time to speak with me.
No,
I really enjoy it. I hope the best rest of your day, and again I really enjoyed the film, so thank you.
Thank you so much. What's that on your jumper, by the way?
It's Shelley Duvall from The Shining.
Nice. Love it. Very cool. Very cool.
You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Hi Teresa, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good, seeing that you're doing okay, because that movie kind of like put me through some emotions.
Yeah.
So my first question, just with the topic of the subject matter, loss and grief, and how that was explored with also the backdrop of, we'll get to that house though, because I would like to know what it was like portraying Rachel in this film.
It was very complicated playing Rachel. So at the center of the story, it revolves around this family who are picking up the fractured pieces of their lives after one of their children dies. So they have twins, and one of the twins dies in an accident. And it's very sudden, and it completely derails them, as you can imagine. And we meet them in a really, really broken place, especially my character, Rachel, who's dealing with mental health issues and just struggling to put one foot in front of the other. So it's an interesting concept, I think, because when I read the script, I thought, wow, this movie is a standalone just as a drama, just as taking a look at a family dealing with such immense trauma, and how do you survive? How do you move on? And also show up for not only each other, but you've got a surviving child that you have to take care of and be okay for. So that was something that I really wanted to explore. And then on top of it, they weaved in those amazing, iconic horror moments, which I think elevate this movie.
Yeah, the genre elements were great, but I love that you touched upon the mental health aspect, because it was very interesting how you could see how each, your character and then the others, just how they handled it. Because you saw different ways for how I would say they slowly somewhat deteriorated. And I enjoyed how that was approached, because it was done, I feel with authenticity, but also it didn't, I don't feel like you guys kind of went over the rails with it. So I as a mental health advocate, I really enjoyed that aspect.
Yeah, I am. I'm a mental health advocate as well. And I know it really well. So like I understand that world. I've had lots of family experience with it. And so that was another reason why I thought it was so delicately handled in the movie, and felt really true to life, and the worlds that people can create for pure survival. It's really, really fascinating and interesting. So I love that there was a real there's just human elements to this character, to Rachel, and you know, the lengths that she goes to be able to move forward in her life. Not only is she carrying the heavy weight of grief, she's also equally carrying a weight of guilt. And I think those two are woven together. And oftentimes, from what I've read, those things do go hand in hand. And mummy guilt is rife in general. But then when you are thrust in a situation where one of your children dies, I think everything is tenfold. So she's dealing with resentment, with grief, with shame, with all those things. And the guilt is just having an erosive effect.
Absolutely. And then, you know, to kind of pretty much, as you see in the film, pick up and move halfway across the world to this now unknown element. And I would say when y'all drove up to the house, I was like, nope, bye, I'm leaving. That's not for me.
Nope. Oh, the house. It's an iconic horror movie house.
It was very impressive that you all found that. And what was it like to just, you know, walking in the first time and then knowing that you were going to tell this story, but I mean, that house was generally creepy, and oof.
Yeah, it feels like a character in and of itself. It really looked like it had eyes. It reminded me of the Amityville horror house, how that one has those windows which look like it's staring into your soul. This one had a similar vibe, and even inside it was really dark. There was a darkness to it. There wasn't a lot of light. There was lots of pokey, weird rooms and like a very skinny staircase, and just like everything just added to the ominous feeling that you get when you drive up for the first time. But my kids loved it. I brought my kids to set, they're like, this is the coolest house I've ever seen. So they kind of gave me a different perspective, because they were playing hide and seek with Tristan, who plays my son. They would all run around and play hide and seek in this huge mansion, and we actually really couldn't find them. They were hiding in trapdoors and random little cupboards, and it was really horrifying, but such a great location. And we shot in Estonia in the middle of winter, but it was just a wonderful experience.
I mean, and the setting, it really was. It was beautiful, and they put you through the ringer. I was like, who do I have to see? Because that was rough. The physicality of your role was really impressive. And so I'm curious, just because of the subject matter, and I think you all had just entered, I think Estonia had gone into lockdown, or how were you all making sure you were also taking care of yourself during the filming?
Well, that was a challenging aspect of it, because it was very physical. But what most people don't know is I was pregnant throughout the whole movie. So I was 13. I started out 13 weeks pregnant, and I finished the movie at 22 weeks pregnant. So that's why my character wears all those big baggy jumpers and jackets, because I have a big belly underneath that. So it was very rigorous.
Oh my God.
But I still I had signed on to the movie, and then I got pregnant, and I was like, hey, so I'm pregnant, but I'm really willing to still do the film. And we just made it work. But I was, we were in the middle of COVID. So what we did was there was a 3 times a week testing regimen. Everyone wore masks, all that sort of stuff. But honestly, we were pretty relaxed. We were relaxed as a crew. We knew that we'd all been tested. We're all wearing masks. We're trying to be as safe as we can. I was pregnant, but I wasn't too worried about it. And we just dove into the subject matter. And luckily everything turned out well and no one got too ill. But yeah, I tried to cultivate some me time in there.
Good.
By having baths. That was my non-negotiable. I was like, I get home, I get to have an hour-long bath. I'm really into true crime. So I'm obsessed. I listen to all the true crime podcasts. So I would sit in the bath, I would listen to Morbid, my favorite true crime podcast, then like Crime Junkie, Case File. And that was my thing. I was like, okay, these are my moments.
I love
one
that.
horror to the next.
Right? Oh my goodness. I think that's great. I mean, true crime is, but I can't say anything. That's like my Friday night. Sometimes I'm going to sit and watch Dateline. Should I? No.
I have that on my podcast as well. I was like, I like some Dateline.
I think they just had one where it was about somebody actually from 2 cities over about that Pam Hutchins. I'm like, oh,
it's too close to home.
I was like, oh gosh, I know exactly that county. I'll go, nope, turning that off
my gosh.
now.
Well, that's like Case File, because the anonymous host, he's Australian. And so the first like season or 2 was all Aussie crimes. And I'd be sitting in Australia in my rural house, like looking out into the darkness, being like, is this going to happen to me? Oh.
I have to ask, then with that, also, you've worked with the cast before. And so how was it? Because I think you had just come from Discovery of Witches. And so you kind of had that chemistry with Steven. So how was it just, kind of jumping back in, and now you're playing different roles, but dynamic.
We don't really like each other very much in the twin, but we've just come from a show where we're actually totally love each other and have so much adoration, and his character is in love with my character. And so on that set, we were very jovial. We were laughing a lot. We were, just there was so much camaraderie and giggling and getting into trouble, like naughty school children who needed to get our stuff together and actually like be on camera and not laugh in takes. So we went from that energy into the pits of hell.
Yeah.
So we actually, I noticed a shift in our dynamic. Like we were so busy on the twin because we were working so much. It was a smaller budget and we were up against the time. So we didn't have as much mucking around time. We didn't have a ton of downtime to have all of our banter and our jokes and our giggles. And so maybe it was a subconscious thing, but we sort of pulled away from each other a little bit, and we were just in it together as these characters and really sort of finding the emotional truth between this husband and wife who are dealing with, such a tremendous tragedy. So I did notice that there wasn't as much laughter between takes. It was a little bit more somber, a little bit more serious. But that, lends itself to the subject matter.
I think so. I mean, honestly, I really enjoyed the movie. I have to say, it was like a therapy session, because afterwards I just had to sit there and think. I'm like, oh my gosh, like wow. So yeah. I do have to know though, what was your favorite part though filming this movie? There were some truly horrifying scenes that they caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, same. And then you never know exactly how something's going to be filmed either. You read it, you create the movie in your head, and then the vision might be very different when you go to filming. But I love that. It's so exciting, and to discover how things are going to be portrayed. And I think for me, they took the horror element even further than what I was expecting. So that was really exciting. But yeah, I find it, I don't know, I found it quite hard to watch in some moments because it's very gruesome. Some of the scenes are quite gruesome, and some of it's really dark, and just the emotional turmoil is just rife. So But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed that experience, and being quite, I get to be an audience member as well. So the first time I sat and watched the movie, I was seeing so many new elements that I didn't get to see while I was there shooting it on the day. And that's always such a joy when you're sitting there at the premiere and you're like, oh my gosh, that's how they did that. It's really cool.
Well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I really did enjoy your film. And again, it may be a tough subject matter, but you all handled it beautifully and very creepy. Again, that house is just an absolute no for me.
I know. I'm glad I don't have to go back there.
But I do love hearing that true crime is your way of just like decompressing. So that's amazing.
Isn't that bizarre? It's bizarre, but true. Bizarre, but true.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You have been listening to the Horror Hour. See you next time.